everyone. This is Hiroja Shibe with another Hiroja's Thought Bubble. And I wanted to share with you this story, this fascinating story, this little bright light in the world, if you will, of Bitcoin with what's going on with the market going down, all the FUD and everyone selling and weekends and all of that. Something I talked about on the Visas the Shy podcast like years ago when it first came out. This gorgeous picture you're seeing here, this puzzle, is part of an art project called an ARG, if you will, by a coin artist. And I have a link to her Facebook page, Twitter handle, and her new puzzle website. But basically what she had done is she had embedded with and I forget the hacker friend, 4.78 Bitcoins in this puzzle. Excuse me. It is one of a series of puzzles, and this was one that was unsolved. A very interesting, gorgeous picture. You got a little knight, a little dove, a little phoenix. It's just a nice picture. You have looks like QR codes right here, and embedded in here was basically the ability to withdraw these Bitcoins, and it was solved today. So people have been looking and attempting to solve this puzzle for a very, very long time. Here's the address. It's one that's been watched by a lot of people. It's 1Flame6. If you might have seen some posts about it or some tweets about it over the time, that's what it was. Now it is actually up to 5 Bitcoins, and we'll talk about in a moment why it's 5. But someone drained it. So let's go here. Yeah, so in November, someone had contributed 0.1257636. So someone figured out what went to the public address, contribute to it, and added to the Bitcoin. As you can see, it was created all the way back here in February of 2015. And then had small amounts, over time contributed to it until it got to its point of, it was like 4.79 is what the amount was, until someone right here contributed 12/14/2017 amount of Bitcoin to it. And it's been withdrawn, it's been drained. And if you're on Twitter, you're going to see a lot of people tweeting about this. A lot of geekheads, a lot of puzzle people who are seeking to contribute to this. I guess at today's prices, I guess it'll be around $50,000, a little give and take there, maybe down to 40, depends, what the market is at the moment. I haven't checked, but this is just fascinating. And this comes on top of earlier this month, in January, where you had the DNA prize, which was launched the same year, where a geneticist had encoded in a DNA profile a Bitcoin private key Bitcoin address. And a student for his doctoral thesis was finally able to solve it and claim that Bitcoin. And so it's just these little puzzles, these little nods, these little things that people have done to make, Bitcoin fun, Bitcoin engaging, cryptocurrency engaging, but also the different things and applications you can do with cryptocurrency. You can, Andrea Annapolis is talking about this, where you can use emojis to transact through SMS messaging to send Bitcoin. Using scenography like this, which is the principles behind this, you could say, to, again, hide Bitcoin. There was a period of time where people would put their private keys or their Bitcoins in artwork like this. There was a little bit of a business, I'm not sure what's come with that, but people started, looking and doing that. Charlie Lee, Satoshi Light, earlier this year around the summertime, had a little Litecoin code and give a couple clues where people, I think it was up to 15 Litecoin. If you solve the puzzle, somebody did that. It was like a BIP puzzle solving. There's a new puzzle. Let me go to the show notes here. Maybe not. Maybe we'll go to show notes. But there is a new puzzle that this person is doing. Let me see if I can find their site. We're going to get into this Wired article in a moment. So, there's a little update where CoinArtist was told the solution to the puzzle will be revealed on Friday. So, now let's just go to Twitter right here. There's an Ethereum one where it's like 15, and it's part of a game, if you will, a site that she has launched. So if someone is going to write it up, Domovis, the TLS puzzle was solved. Wait for the write-up by him. So this is just super fascinating. Let me see this right here. Get rid of that. Neo District RPG. So let's go to here. Go to here. Again, another Easter egg hunt. Another hunt to find, cryptocurrency. In this case, I think it is Ethereum. Just gorgeous work. Look at those colors. Oh, very cyberpunk. Very, cyberpunk. Nope. Oh. Uh-oh. But, yeah, so very gorgeous. Very, there's a Twitter, Facebook. There's a Discord down here, I guess. Don't know why it's not completely showing. But yeah, I was just amazed. And it was something I think I talked about in a previous video. I was kind of wondering whether this had not been solved at all yet. And I guess it has been. So let's go back and see about the write-up about how it was solved, how the code was broke, how this individual was able to do this. Yeah, right here in the announcement, 15 ETH prize hidden. So Ethereum's been trading consistently, I say, the last couple of weeks at 1,000. So there's $15,000 here prize. Okay. Also, let's look at this Twitter person's handle. This guy designed a stuffy DNA database in Blade Runner 2049. How fake the real cool computer sub, which is friendly research documentary. Don't know what that's about. But anyways, Signal, Keybase. I'm gonna actually have to follow him on Keybase. Nope. Oops. So there's that. Let's get into the motherboard article a little bit. So a Bitcoin puzzle from 2015 was recently used as a springboard to reveal what appears to be an automated Bitcoin siphon. So that's not the article. So did someone solve it? Yes. So CoinArtist is the individual that on Twitter that did that. Currently at prices of $50,000. Motherboard reached out to CoinArtist to verify the puzzle was in fact definitively solved, since it's equally possible that CoinArtist simply emptied the wallet on their own. In a screenshot of Telegram message shown to Motherboard, CoinArtist appears to have been alerted to the puzzle's resolution by someone other than the person who actually solved it. The person who solved the puzzle was apparently distributing part of the reward to people who helped them solve it. So it looks like it's a group effort. That's awesome. I think we might have to go back and follow the Bitcoin address. The puzzle consists of a cryptographic painting made by CoinArtist, which was recently at the center of a large. We'll get to the large mystery in a moment, but this was solved. And yeah, so let's go to the Bitcoin address and see final balance. So let's see if we can follow the coins here. So we'll sit here and let's see. So sent to this address, and then it's been sent to this address. A lot of one addresses. 0.5 to somebody here with a 0.449 here. So let's follow along. That person Might have to go to somewhere else. Currently, as it stands at February 1st, there's 0.5 there. Let's see, 1.3, 0.133 over there. So may have been a group effort in an effort to, keep going. That's where it sits as of right now. So yeah, this is pretty amazing. I'm pretty sure this person was probably gonna have to, like, from the first address, sign like a demonstrate that they have ownership of private keys. How they made the solution. It'd be interesting to see what the write up is. Hopefully by tomorrow, I'll come in early, and maybe I'll just come on when it comes in and talk about it. This is some of the puzzles in the past that have been solved. At the time, this is 2014. This is 3.5 Bitcoin, which was probably like around a couple $100 at the time. Just really look at there's these numbers and letters and all this randomness right here, all breaking up. It's just really, really good work, I think. It's very engaging. It's always very colorful. Public address, congratulations, gatekeeper at the end of the game. This was the Bitcoin Talk subreddit forum that has been part of the AGR puzzle. Been keeping track of all of this, and yeah. So yeah, it's 4.87 Bitcoins. That's what it originally had. So why is this even a bigger hoopla than right now? So this comes from the Motherboard article. And this started in December. Now, I saw something around November time that's being talked about. And I wasn't really sure what to make of this statement by this poster. And I'm going to read the original paste bin. But the puzzle is known as the Legend of Satoshi Nakamoto. And according to its creator, the puzzle consists of a painting that holds a key to a wallet that contains 4.87 Bitcoin. Since its creation, the community of the puzzle, known as One Flame in 6, awesome. They must have done like one of those name Bitcoin things to get it like that. Basically, someone had sent 1.25 Bitcoin to the wallet. The deposit was an unexpected surprise for the puzzle creator, and the obsessive community dedicated to solving it. But the circumstances leading to the deposit pointed to a far larger mystery in the Bitcoin world: a network of linked, easily accessible wallets facilitating automatic Bitcoin transactions. According to the hacker who discovered them, these wallets could possibly be part of a Bitcoin siphon that's been stealing Bitcoins from wallet services or an exchange for years, kind of like a code in the film Office Space that was supposed to skim fractions of pennies from transactions. On the other hand, it could be something more innocuous like a coding error. So, this is the paste bin, and I'm going to read the paste bin here. So, hi. Thanks for passing this along and get some attention. I was worried if I posted this somewhere, it would mostly go unnoticed, and I'm also trying to stay anonymous because I don't want to be accused of being the person who came up with the exploit or be blamed by any company for any damages. It's an interesting technical story, so I thought I would share it. So, the story begins here. First off, this guy using this exploit was stole 9 Bitcoins from a Reddit user, Fitware. So, I returned the 9 BTC to Reddit user Fitware, who recently claimed were stolen from their blockchain info wallet. I remember seeing that story where they didn't understand how that happened, and then this kind of generated. So I had the evidence that some Bitcoin addresses generate a code in the wild is using a private key that can be easily discovered on a regular basis. This is either intentional or by mistake. Some wallets have been compromised, but it is probably an innocent-looking piece of code. Furthermore, someone has been siphoning Bitcoin on a regular basis since 2014 for them. Whether they discovered this by accident like I did, or they're the ones who installed the code themselves, I don't know. It looks either a clever exploit or a coding error. It could also be yet another piece of malware. However, as I explained below, I feel that this is less likely the case. In order to fully understand how this works and how to discover it, please read on. So I first saw this story. The guy was saying that he was randomly going out there, generating as many private keys as he could, and trying to break the mnemonic, easy to remember 12 to 24 word seeds that people had there, and going, buy and try to break the words of passphrase and see what would click. And that he was able to do this exploit and find, all these different private addresses and stuff like that, which is very scary in itself because, people, particularly technical people, not technical people, rely on the wallet service providers. And blockchain info, where this Fitware originally had this 9BTC, is notoriously known for being very, very, very bad when it comes to their wallet software. And it's been exploited before, vulnerabilities. People have lost Bitcoin in transactions. I mean, it's just been a mess for years. The only reliable thing I would say for about blockchain info is, to some extent, their tracking. But as far as wallet usage, I personally wouldn't recommend it. I think they have had too many issues over time. They have not scaled up the development team to fix those issues. The fact that Andre Anabas has left that company like years back when he worked for them for a little bit, kind of an indicator, they're just not getting the quality people there or keeping them to help develop a good quality Bitcoin wallet. But here we go. I've been following Bitcoin since I first heard of it in 2011. One of the things that fascinated me was the ability for someone to create a private key for just about anything using SHA-256. SHA-256 password/phrase. This, of course, is not a recommended way of obtaining a private key, since if you can think of a word or phrase, someone else can too, and likelihood of your Bitcoins being stolen is quite high. So basically, if you use like common word phrases, or this article goes through it, or even like, I don't know, you name of your dog, your mother, stuff like that. If you could think of it, so could a bot think of it. So it's far more important to get as random as possible using a machine to do it, using empathy, than this particular method. So the most secure private keys are generated randomly. The probability of someone else being able to generate the same sequence of 32 random bits is so close to zero, it's highly improbable anyone ever will, given the expected lifespan of the universe. So using randomness, you're better off. I mean, even with quantum computers and AI, I don't think at this point, and it hasn't been provable mathematically, even within the theory of the existence of quantum computing, that people can predict your private keys. It's just, the math is just not there. If you peer into the blockchain, you'll find that people have played with the chain by sending small amounts of Bitcoins to addresses corresponding to private keys, generating using SHA-256. For example, SHA-256 of each word in the entire user dictionary words file found on most Unix systems has a small amount sent to it. There was a site called Brain Wallet I've used in the past that made it easy for you to convert a phrase into a private key plus public address. The code is still available on GitHub, but it's since been removed from the internet. Yeah, because it was just too easy to crack. It really was. But it was there. It was a thing for a while. Try using the phrases like, I find your lack of faith disturbing, these aren't the droids you're looking for, or Satoshi Nakamoto's inputs to SHA-56, and you'll find the addresses corresponding to those private keys have had small amounts sent to them and transferred out. It's quite obvious they were meant to be found. It turns out there were a lot of these addresses. Keep looking and you will easily find some. There's nothing new and has been known to the Bitcoin community for a while. So this is an issue or problem, and people have been made aware of it. This is why Brain Wallet was taken kind of down. This is why people are highly recommending using Empathy, even using downloading the paper wallet thing. You can download the Bitcoin paper wallet using random stuff and generate your keys offline so no one can be able to track your private keys. This is why OpenDime works. Things of that nature. Using randomness works. I've always had the idea in the back of my mind to try and find out other non-trivial examples of discoverable private keys. That's something beyond SHA-256 word phrases, so I decided to try and hunt for buried Bitcoin treasures. Perhaps I could find some Bitcoin intentionally hidden by someone that hadn't yet been discovered. In the first couple of weeks of June 2017, I finally devoted some time to the task. I honestly didn't expect to find much of, but I was amazed at what I ended up discovering. I began writing a program to scan every block in the blockchain and record every public address that has ever been used. Okay, first off, this obviously is a person who has some technical know-how, clearly a developer, maybe even somebody that we might even actually know. I understand why they want to be anonymous and not be accused of doing anything or taking anybody's funds, but this takes a bit of skill to be able to do this. You can't just plug and play pull something from GitHub and get this going. I didn't only store addresses for which the balance was greater than 0. I stored all of them, which is why I believe I ended up accidentally discovering what I did. There are only about 290 million at the time, so this wasn't a big deal. Yeah, so this guy's actually good if you don't think 200 million blockchain addresses, or blocks, if you will, public addresses, is not a big deal. Second, to be able to have not only the bandwidth, the computing power, and the storage power to do this, this is a guy that's a serious person. Excuse me. The experiments. What follows is a description of my experience and will let me to discover what I believe is either a scam or really bad coding error. I'm hoping it is really bad coding error. And now that this is out and has been out for a little bit, or a while, if you will, it'd be interesting to see what other nuggets within the Bitcoin is going on, and what that will mean for wallet development in general. Because there's so many people that got in this space early, hold, maybe had it on a paper wallet, have it on a thumb drive somewhere, haven't thought about their public-private key or whatever, just hold it to that whatever magnitude number or whenever they decide to sell or use, and haven't thought about this in a while. And they could easily be exposed because they went very early on in the space and didn't think about it, and they didn't generate their private keys properly, if you will. My first experiment was to see if anyone used a block cache as a private key. There would actually be an easy way to compress 32 bits in your head. You would only have to remember the block height, which is only maybe 6 digits, and the corresponding larger 32-bit number would be saved for all time in the chain itself. Results: success. I found 46 addresses that had some amount of Bitcoin sent to them between 2009 and 2016. I expected these all had zero balance, either because the owner had taken them back or they were discovered by someone else. Here are 2 examples. You can use blockcheck info to see that these hex values are actually block caches from early in the chain. This happened on and off until mid-2016. So let's check the work. Okay, so back. So let's check the work. Let's see if we can do blockchain info. Let's get rid of that. I just love these little things. And, some of these I can't solve myself, but I always like following along to what somebody's doing. So let's nope, right here. So copy, paste. Probably put the wrong information in. So let's deal with the hash. All right. So number of transactions: 50 Bitcoin, 0 BTC, 2 main chains. Wow, that's the early hash, if you will. Unknown, replayed, block rewards. So this is very early on. The number of transactions, 150. So this is like Satoshi Nakamoto's hash. So someone took this hash and corresponded it to this block. Huh. I'm not really understanding. Let's go by this hash. Copy. That says hold. Interesting. Base. Another early Satoshi Nakamoto hash. Still 50 BTC in it. And then I guess if we go to these public addresses, copy, price. Total receive 14. So I'm assuming someone. Okay, so the hash is actually the private key. They were able to unlock this. Okay. How would I? Alright, anyways. So moving along, nothing really alarming so far. So experiment 2. Similar to my first experiment, I then searched for addresses were generated from the Merkle root used as a private key. BTY searched for both compressed and uncompressed keys, so each 32-bit result in 2 addresses lookups from my database. Results, yes, I found 6 addresses again until mid-2016. Even though every address I found had 0 bounds, again I expected, I was having fun with my cassettes. Okay, similar to the Merkle root, black caches, transaction ID hashes also seem to have been used as private keys. Still nothing alarming to me thus far. Experiment 3. I wonder at this same point, people would have used a repeated SHA-256 on words. Why stop at just one iteration when you can easily do 1 million? Also, it became less likely to be discovered than most iterations do. I found a bunch, and here are a few. This one's my favorite, someone's birth year, the password, hello. So these, so resender times 2, receiver times 2, hello times 4, hello times 65536, password times 1975. People were obviously burying Bitcoin in the chain. Whether they expected the coins to be taken or not, you'll never know, but these methods are still highly discoverable in my opinion. Experiment 5. My last experiment is the one that led me to believe that someone was siphoning Bitcoin from some service on a regular basis and has been since 2014. Take a look at this private key. The public address is this. The raw bits of the private key look like this. Looks random enough. However, these bits are actually SHA-256 of this public address. Oh. So someone took the public address, ran it through SHA-256, got the private key, and oh, wow. SHA-256 of this public address. Huh. I discovered this by performing 256 on all the public addresses I collected for the setup of my experiment, and seeing if those addresses from the generated private keys were ever used. Bingo. Lots were coming up. I searched a fraction of the chain and found dozens. I also found that these addresses had Bitcoin sent to them very recently, within weeks/days, or when I discovered them. I asked myself, why would someone do this? At first, I thought this was someone who thought they could get away with having to remember only one piece of information rather than 2. Maybe they have a favorite address/private key combo and derive another from that one. I thought it was possible. Okay, so someone thinking someone's being lazy. You can keep doing this in a chain to derive as many as you want and only ever have to remember the first one. But I wrote this out for one simple reason. Bitcoins transferred into these addresses will be transferred out with minutes or seconds. If someone generated these private keys for themselves, then would the coins be almost immediately transferred out in every case I looked at? Here are some of a complete list at the end of this doc. So let's look at this. So copy, put it in the blockchain, enter, come on. So total received. So you received on June 2nd, 2015, 11:40, and within seconds. Interesting. So pretty much within the moment it hit the wallet, it exited the wallet, and it went. So that one's 6K, 1CK, and that's the SHA from this other address. In every case I looked, these coins were moved away within minutes or seconds. It was much more likely that a bot was waiting for those coins to show up. Also, transactions are still happening to this day on those addresses. How can that bot know in advance that the address is about to receive Bitcoins? A scam or a mistake? It's at this point I formed a theory that what was really happening. It's likely that someone installed a malicious code into the back-end system of a mining pool, an exchange, or possibly a wallet generation code. So let's look at that. If that's true, we look at the Bitcoin address here. Let's see if we can find one that has a more recent, if he showed one that's more recent. Let's see if this one has more recent. Uh, 2014. I wonder if this could be something that's spamming the network, given the small amounts that some would consider dust. 10. Let me drop down below and see if we can find one that's more recent. Alright, let's try this one. This one right here. Ooh, right here. More recent one. So moving in and out right here. And it came from this address here. It started from this address here. It got all these smaller addresses here. Huh. So here we go. So going back up. So still kind of going on, not with everything. It's a lot of addresses you can Skype out. Okay, so if someone had done this to a wallet, I wonder which wallet it is. 2, if it's from an exchange or a mining pool, is it possible to find the original genesis for a mining pool exchange? This will require those blockchain spies that no one truly likes. But yeah, so so here we go. Well, I have a theory of that too. It's hard to code. It looks suspicious. So, okay, they're using the public information so that they can discover the private keys easily and steal the coins on the side. But why would they use SHA-256 public addresses? Why not do the SHA-56 public address plus some super hard to guess random sequence, or just use their hard-coded address? Well, I have a theory on that too. It can't be a hard-coded or look suspicious in the source code repository. It's likely the code was introduced by someone who works or worked for some company connected to Bitcoin, the exchange, the mining pool, gambling site, wallet. Codes submitted by developers into the source control system usually go through a code review process. It would be much easier to hide an innocent-looking SHA-256 operation inside of millions of code that make up the back end. I'm hoping that this gets out more, and everybody who has any of these services is doing a complete code review, getting outside out, and just going line by line. Like if you have to print it out and go with a ruler and some red marker and looking for this. SHA-256 is also used all over the place in Bitcoin and will look suspicious. The function can be easily readily available. However, if the code were to be submitted that performed SHA-256 address plus secret password 12345XYZ, that would look very suspicious. My guess is that someone has slipped in the routine that looks harmless, but it's actually diverting Bitcoin to their waiting bot, ready to gobble them up. It's actually quite clever. No one can know the destination address in advance. You have to keep performing SHA-256 on all the public addresses ever used to cash that 1 in a million transaction. Someone would be able to capture those coins by simply watching for a transaction into an address that corresponds to a private key generated from SHA-256 of one of the existing public addresses, and keeping such a database is trivial and lookups are quick. To be fair, I suppose this could be a coding error. Anything is possible with buffer overflow. I'd love to see the code if this is ever found. Transactions are still happening right up until a couple of weeks before I made this discovery, so I wrote a bot to try and catch a transaction. Mind blown. Okay, so that's interesting. Okay, so a couple weeks before this was, he was writing this discovery and started in June. This came all the way out in November, so I'm wondering, with the holidays, someone shut down the bot. When do you keep this going on continuous? Interesting. So with the first 40 hours of my bot going live on June 14th, so this is back in June, so there's no holidays. This happened rather quickly. So he started June 17th, June 19th, so a couple of days later. Okay, so this guy came up with a program to get scan all the public addresses, right? Keeps it in a database of 200 million Bitcoin public addresses. So he has the hardware, the coding ability to do that. Now he's playing with all the different SHAs, with the random generated word thing, with the public address, a hash. And now he created his bot to find this, all within a small period of time. Okay, so this kind of narrows the pool down a little bit. So within the first 40 hours of my bot going live on June 19th, a whopping 9.5 BTC was transferred into address, which I had the private key. This is approximately worth 23,000 USD at the time. I was shocked. This is the address. The private key is this, whose raw bits are derived from SHA-256 of this public address, which appears to be some random address previously used in the chain. But I failed to test my program sufficiently, and it failed to submit the transaction. The 9.5 BTC was sitting there for about 15 minutes before being swept away by someone else. I honestly didn't think the first amount to cross my radar would be so high. The other samples I found from the past transactions were for tiny amounts. It was quite possible that whoever moved them later out of the poison address actually owned them. Maybe someone else just sweeper bot only takes small amounts most of the time to avoid detention. At this point, I was pretty confident I was onto something not yet discovered by anyone else. I could have taken those 9.5 BTC, and that was known to others. Also, if you look into the history of the account, 12 BTC was transferred into it and out of it right away only 1 month earlier. No one else claimed any theft to my knowledge involving that address. I fixed my program, actually tested properly this time, and let it run again. My program detected more transactions, 2 within the next 40 hours. I coded my bot to ignore anything less than 0.1 BTC, so I didn't move them. I didn't want to tip off anyone that I knew that what they were doing if that's what they need the case. Another 3 to 4 days passed, so the 19th, 20th, 1921, so June 25th, around there. The next hit, my bot detected roughly 0.03 BTC. For some reason, it was not transferred out immediately like the rest, but this time it was July 4th weekend. Okay, so a little bit more than that. I let this one sit too, and it took a full 7 days before it was removed, not by me. It may have been the legitimate owner or a bot. We'll never know. That was the destination address. This is the private key. The plot thickens. I didn't realize it last time, but the last transfer was into an address for a private key not generated from another public address like the first one. Instead, this address was generated from a transaction ID. I had forgotten that I seeded my database with private keys generated with transaction IDs as part of one of my earlier experiments. I didn't label them, so I didn't know which were for the SHA-56 public address and which were from the transaction IDs. I found some hits at that time, but when I checked the balances for those accounts, they were all zeros, so I didn't think anything of it. But now my database was detecting outgoing transactions into those addresses and transaction ID based too. Interesting. So he did a few different ways of looking at this database. Again, please randomly generate your private keys. Because this is just one guy who has a special set of skills, if you will, doing all this. Okay, so someone was probably using information from the blockchain itself to ensure private keys were discoverable for the address they were funneling the Bitcoin into. So if you develop a bot to skim off the top, you want to be able to find where they're putting the addresses is, and you want to be able to access it. So it's very understandable. You want to make it as pretty easy for you to find. The interesting thing, I found the link between this address via SHA public address and this address transferred via the text ID as a key. In the history of both of these addresses, you can see that BTC eventually ended up into this address. Also, the transaction ID for the previous transaction to one that put the BTC in TOX discoverable address in the first place. Now it became even more clear. The malicious codes sometimes use a recent transaction ID as a private key for the doomed destination address. Following the 0.3 BTC back, and you'll see what I mean. You eventually get to the text ID private key for the discoverable address. Okay, so this address is one of the collection addresses. I have reason to believe there have been many over the years. This is the only one that goes back to approximately March 2017. You can see in the history of this one address when they consolidate their ill-gotten gains into one run transaction back to themselves. Okay, so let's look at this address. I let my bot run longer, and the next hit I got was the block hashes that were used as a private keys. See experiment 1. Sure enough, this address also links back to a collection of addresses. So you do have to funnel your ill-gotten gains somewhere, right? Eventually, you don't want to be paying out too much in fees, especially since they're going so high. But interesting. So let's look at this history. So total received 183 transactions. Wow. Going as late as July 10th. And going as early as July 6th. Interesting. Let's look at the graph. Confirmed transactions per day. So March. Boop boop, and then a spike collection. 5 transactions, and then 10, and then 9. Alright. I let my bot run longer. The next hit I got was a block hash that used a private key. Okay, so, and remember the Merkle Root experiment? I believe there was also part of this. However, I have not linked those to this one particular collection of addresses yet. In the end, I found a total of 4 different discoverable private key methods being used. I made sure my database was filled with every block hash, Merkle Root transaction ID, and SHA-256 public address for private keys. I let my bot run. The transactions for all 4 types are showing up again for tiny amounts, which I ignored. But this time I was watching BTC getting taken in small amounts regularly. Sometimes I saw as many 6 transactions fly by in one day. So he found this guy, fit where lost, and got back 9 BTC. So on November 12th, my program saw 9 PTs transferred to an address that my database had the private key for. I searched for that address to see if anyone was claiming ownership. I didn't see anything. I decided to send a small amount to well-known puzzle address to give the transaction some public scrutiny in an anonymous way. So this is a way, if you will, it's kind of like someone tipping the cops off anonymously, if you will. by saying, oh, I robbed this place, and you find this happened. Actually, seen a few stories like this, and they find like child pornography. So they're like letting the cops know like a lot of details without revealing themselves. Um, I guess you could say this is another way of doing this. He's kind of doing something nefarious, a little bit, if you will, experiment, if you will, taking Bitcoin if he wanted to. But like you said, he was just looking to see what he could do. It was fascinating. So, and stumbled upon, I don't know, criminal scheme or bad coding. We'll see. I decided to send a small amount to the well-known postal address to give the transactions some public scrutiny in an anonymous way. One flaming six. I'm still trying to solve this, by the way. That's funny. Shortly after I became aware of Fitware's Reddit post claiming that theft after someone noticed the prize amount had been topped off and linked to the two events together. So I remember seeing this post. Yeah. So I contacted Fitware privately and returned their coins minus a small amount I sent to the postal address. LeBlanc Info's original response to the support ticket was that his system must have been compromised. However, if you read his post, he took every precaution, including typing in the key for his paper wallet instead of copying and paste and using 2FA. Ooh. Huh. I remember the 2FA, but I didn't remember that it was a paper wallet. In his case, in August 2017, he imported the private key for his paper wallet address into blockchain info and submitted a test transaction. At some point between then and November 12th, the compromised Bitcoin address got into his online wallet as an imported address. Huh. Together, we contacted blockchain info and relayed the information I just outlined above to them. Their security team investigated and found no evidence it was their system that was at fault. I suppose it's possible his system was somehow compromised back in August and managed to import a key into the blockchain info without his knowing it, or someone else logged into his account, imported the key, and then waited. I feel that the malware/Longa explanation are much less likely because it looks like code attempting to hide in plain sight to me. You wouldn't need to use SHA-256 addresses or black caches or text IDs or local root if you were malwaring or unauthorized login. Yeah, that's a lot of effort, really, if you think it's extra stuff. It's like bringing a bazooka to a bank robbery. You would at least salt or obscure the key with some bit of knowledge only you know so that you can only derive the private key, as I mentioned earlier. The fact that the information from the blockchain itself is being used indicates that maybe some transaction processing logic. Also, if Fitware took extreme precaution, you can read his Reddit post for details. The origin of those poison destination addresses remains a mystery. So, if this is the case, and then some wallet generation code is doing this, this may be the case that we're seeing change transactions when you create a wallet that maybe 20 addresses generate. They're all supposed to be random keys. If this is a rogue code created one of them in this manner based on the public address string of an early one, then at some point your change will get back into it as the wallet and round robins through the list. Huh. So Fit's 15D address set unused until November 12th when Fitware transferred his 9 BTC using blockchain info. To see the connection, take a look at this. Fitware insists that he did not import the key for that address. The blockchain info generated and it was added by a malicious browser code. We may never know. See below the complete list of other SHA-52 base addresses that suffer the same issue. I believe this is happening for others. It's likely that small amounts usually taken or go unnoticed by the owners. What does this mean for Bitcoin? Nothing, probably. I believe the Bitcoin network itself is to be secure. However, as long as humans are involved in the services that surround it, mining pools, exchanges, online/mobile wallets, there's always a chance for fraud or error. The Bitcoin network itself may be trustless, but anything humans touch around it is peripherals is certainly not. I need to use those services to get in and out of the network, so even with Bitcoin, it still boils down to trust. To be fair to blockchain info, only SHA-256 public addresses and one particular were found to be present in one of their wallets. The other three methods I described above could be completely unrelated, and they could possibly be a real weird software bug. However, there are 100 plus addresses that receive Bitcoins whose private keys are the bytes a result from SHA-256 or another public address. Most of them came from a scan I did of all transactions, not while my bot was running, and blockchain info told me they did not appear to have been generated by their system. Also, the list of addresses I provided are the only subset that had already had some BTC transacted through them. There are likely hundreds more lying dormant inside people's wallets that have not been used. And then he provides the list. Okay, so that's a lot. My bot moved coins from the last 2 addresses only. No one has claimed ownership from 16NX. All other transfers were the result of other people who either figured this out or the ones who planted the bad addresses themselves since 2014. And these are some recent examples of private keys that are based on other information in the blockchain itself. As stated, may be completely unrelated, but still happen on a regular basis. I think that the information should be made public so the other back-end systems plug into the crypto networks can guard against this sort of hide-in-plain-sight attack. And as stated earlier, I honestly set out to look for buried treasure and stumble upon someone else's exploit. Thanks to YT Coin Artist assistance in making this public. Going dark now. Bye. Alright. So yes. So there could be some weird backdoor exploit in somebody's wallet generator or mining operation that this is occurring. It would be interesting to see when these transactions happen, if this might be, maybe this is a spam bot. People talk about, the network being spammed all the time, and I have certain issues with the whole concept of spam, but this is very fascinating, in this exploit. And the fact that not only this made awareness of, I would think they both made each other kind of famous here. This guy using his exploit and trying to figure out the best way to get this news out for everyone to believe him and not dismiss this. Excuse me. What he found was, attaching himself to a very popular puzzle piece and having people go through the blockchain and discovering all this information, if you will, and kind of verifying it. But also, maybe that kind of got people's eyeballs onto the puzzle and realizing, hey, I could use 5 Bitcoin right now and getting that discovered. So, yeah, it's again, this is very techie stuff, very technical knowledge, all the weird and wonderful things you can do with Bitcoin. And again, it's, you just got to trust but verify. Trust but verify. So just go to blockchain info. And where is Fitware? Is it embedded in the motherboard? No. Alright, so again, this was kind of 2 months ago when this came out, but because of the puzzle solving, this has been brought up again, and plus the motherboard article being released on the puzzle solving. But this, again, occurred a little ways back. At the time, I didn't know what to make of it. Now reading it and finding out a little bit more about it, I hope there's some more discussion about this. Again, I hope the people that do the wallets and the exchanges and the mining pools, and we spent the last couple months or this time looking and making sure that they're not responsible for this, that one of the developers has not done this. And kudos to this guy for being curious and finding and looking for buried treasure and discovering this. This could have been going on for years. Who knows how long this could be going on? and how much Bitcoin really, it'd be fascinating to see, as other people might be looking into how much Bitcoin has been like siphoned up or gone through all these different change, what the total is, and what the, the economic value, if you will, for this is. So that's it. Thought I should share about the solving a Bitcoin puzzle. Again, there's a link to all this in the show notes. There is a new puzzle that you can find where you can reward 15 ETH, 15 Ether if you're able to find it. But yeah, I encourage you to follow coin artists, uh, follow the social media, go check out the website. Fascinating art, and it's just a fun way to earn crypto, fun way to engage in this space. And it's not about trading or holding or spending or this coin or that coin, but just a nice fun little game to kill some time or learn a new skill, if you will. So that's it. Thank you for listening. um, Logging out for now. One Doge equals one Doge, and to the moon. Oh, and like, subscribe, comment down below, and share if you can.